Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, January 19th. Of course, is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So I hope everybody is enjoying a good day off, but also reflecting on what this day actually means. Unfortunately, we're not really going to be able to get into that today because the President of the United States went completely and totally insane over the weekend, as revealed by PBS. I'm going to get into that in just a moment here. I want to take a little bit of time. Before we do that, I would like for more people to hop in. Obviously, the chat's already going pretty good, so that's nice to see. But yeah, what happened, what was revealed by PBS is nothing short of shocking, to be honest with you. We are apparently on the cusp of World War III. And I don't say that lightly. I'm not trying to get people all worked up or crazy or whatever, but this is the worst we have ever seen Donald Trump. So here's what happened. On Sunday evening, PBS reported the existence of a letter that Donald Trump sent to the Prime Minister of Norway, which, of course, the Prime Minister of Norway did, in fact, confirm its authenticity. And the letter basically said, I'm not going to work towards peace anymore because Norway didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize. So because I have a big sad, I'm basically now threatening war. Because when you say you're not working towards peace, then you're doing the opposite of peace, which is war. I mean, that's the only thing you can really deduce from that. Here is what Donald Trump said in this absolutely mentally ill letter that he sent to another world leader. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? Trump continues. There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you. Listen, Donald, if you're going to start poking holes in whether or not a country is allowed to be ruled by who's ruling it because they landed a boat there a couple hundred years ago, I think the indigenous people of the United States would have something to say about that, right? Like, you can't claim a land just because your boat landed here. Yeah, a lot of indigenous folks raising their hands right now like, wait, hold up, really? Because we have a couple grievances we'd like to discuss if that's the case. Also, this is giving real strong Hitler being rejected from art school vibes, right? Trump says, I didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, so give me Greenland or you're going to face the consequences. Hitler gets rejected from art school and he goes down the path he went down. I mean, this, and by the way, also, like, we're in the 2020s. That all, the wheels of that got in motion in the 1920s. So here we are, 100 years later, repeating history, different names, different faces, but almost same scenarios here. Trump's mad because his feelings got hurt. Hitler was mad because his feelings got hurt. And now here we are. So this is absolutely dark times. This is mentally ill. This is, I don't know if it's the rage that comes with dementia or if it's just he has no filter anymore. But this is definitely mental illness. This is definitely dementia. This is definitely dictatorial crap here. And this is 100% grounds for using the 25th Amendment to get this man out of office. He has to be removed from office. He has to. Now, I know before everybody starts like, but that's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. I know that. But that is not going to stop me from mentioning the fact at every possible opportunity that J.D. Vance and the rest of this cabinet of clowns have the ability to do it. They're not. We're watching in real time on a daily basis as this man descends further and further into madness. And part of his madness is this desire for global conquest. We do not need to own, as Trump says, Greenland for national security purposes. We have our national security presence there. Russia and China do not. Greenland is not under threat by those countries. There is no available evidence to suggest that that is even something these countries are even thinking about, let alone attempting to do. If Russia or China were to try to do something with Greenland and position themselves right there with Canada and the United States, miles away, basically, that would effectively be mutually assured destruction. They're not dumb enough to do that. Russia might be, but China definitely not. Donald Trump is. Not just dumb, but now also clearly crazy. There is nothing left of this man's brain. And his insanity is pushing us towards what could end up easily being World War III. All because he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. Let me retract that. It's not because he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. Honestly, folks, this goes back further than that. This is only because Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize. That's why all of this is happening. I'm not blaming Obama. That's not his fault at all. But way back then, when that happened, it was at 2009, 2010, something like that, it pissed Trump off at the time. This was before he was considering entering politics. Pissed him off. That caused him to go real hard against Obama, eventually, getting into politics because of his hatred for Obama, because Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize. So if Obama had never won that Nobel Peace Prize, pissing off Donald Trump for no reason, like that doesn't impact you at all, Donald. But if that had never happened, this thing with Greenland would not be happening right now. So it is weird when you look back at, these little seemingly insignificant historical events, it snowballs. And yes, we did see a lot of that in the lead up to World War I and, of course, World War II. But the similarities between what Donald Trump is doing and Hitler do not stop at the, I didn't win the Nobel Prize, I didn't get into art school. What was Hitler also doing at the time when he was also, taking over these other countries or pieces of other countries? He was rounding up people here at home and sticking them in camps. Does that also sound familiar? I mean, we are mirroring what took place there. We are mirroring that right now in the United States of America. And I don't think enough people realize that. I don't think enough people see it's not just similarities. It's copycat. It's not like, well, this is kind of, no. You're taking people, you're demonizing certain religions, telling us they are the enemies. These countries are the enemies. We need this land for this. We need this land for that. I've already got Venezuela. Now I need Greenland. Now I need a little piece, a little piece, a little piece, if you remember the Mel Brooks song, right? But that is where we are at this point in the United States of America. And don't get me wrong, Hitler was crazy. I mean, obviously, those beliefs that he held, the things that he did, those are not normal, okay? I get that. But Hitler didn't have dementia. He had lots of other health issues that, caused him to have a lot of insecurities that, led to psychological problems. Trump has those too, though. But he also likely has dementia. So we're dealing with someone who, in the end, likely would not have the same death toll, I don't think, but somebody who is even crazier and more extreme and less predictable. He's going after Greenland. That is going to happen. And one of the bigger problems we have here in the United States is just the fact that Republicans are on board with it. Now, not the voting public, right? Not the American citizens, but the lawmakers are. Ted Cruz came out, I think it was Saturday, and was like, yeah, we absolutely have to have Greenland for national security purposes. We can't do it without Greenland. We have to have it. So he's got the people that could rein him in on board with this. He's got the cabinet basically by the scrote, so they're not going to invoke the 25th Amendment. We are stuck for now. We've got midterms maybe coming up in November. Who knows? He's going to cancel them. I am firmly convinced he is going to attempt to cancel them. He's going to do everything he can to cancel those midterms. Like, that is not a doubt in my head. He is absolutely going to do that. Just like with the whole Greenland thing at first, it was like, oh, well, he's kidding. He's not going to do that. It's a joke. And then it's like, oh, no, he's actually serious, but he makes a good point, right? See how it evolves? Same thing with the canceling of the elections. He's mentioned that 3 times now in the last couple of weeks. And Republicans are like, well, he's joking. He's not actually going to do it. See, he's laughing as he says it. And now it's going to evolve into, well, he's got a point. I mean, we've got this war in Venezuela. We've got the war for Greenland going on. So many bad things are on the horizon. Even if we took away the foreign policy part. I mean, economic analysts coming out over the weekend warning us like, hey, shit's about to get real bad, real fast, depression levels. So even if he weren't going insane with the foreign policy, we have all of these problems here at home that he is just not addressing in any capacity. And they are getting worse here. But here's the other thing. Even before this absolutely unhinged letter to the Prime Minister of Norway, he came out, a day and a half prior to that and said, I'm going to slap tariffs on everybody who doesn't let me take Greenland. All the NATO countries, so 27 of them, even though he said it's only 8. However, if you put a tariff on one because it's the European Union, it's a tariff on all of them. So it is actually 27 countries, including the United Kingdom. So he's already making threats. He's already saying starting February 1st, you got a 10% tariff. By June, it's going to go up to 25% on top of the other tariffs that I have already put onto you. Not to mention the fact that all of that means we pay more. Europe is going to end up in the position where they have to sanction the United States, where they have to put embargoes on us. In order to stop this madman, they're going to have to do to us what we have been doing to other countries for decades when there is a madman or dictator in charge that we don't want in charge. We squeeze their population to the point where the population doesn't want this person there anymore. That's what Europe is probably going to end up doing, especially now with this new tariff threat. And honestly, as much as it's going to suck for those of us here, myself included, obviously, do it. I want them to do it. Donald Trump thinks he's this big bad bully. And sometimes you got to kick the bully in the groin. And that's what that would be. And that's the only thing he is going to respond to. That is the only thing he is going to do. So that's what has to happen, because we know Republicans in Congress are not going to do anything. His cabinet is not going to remove him like they should. Europe, on the other hand, has the ability to squeeze us financially and wreck us economically. I don't want that to happen. I don't want the pain of that, but that may be the only thing that stops this guy. So a ton of super chats came through. I do want to try to address all of these. CK Progressive says, Farron, I know it's dark times, but I'm still laughing at what that Caroline Levitt segment you did on Friday. It's hilarious how much of a psycho she is. Well, thank you for that. I can't tell if this is Miller or Trump. It's a combination of all of them. As Levitt actually pointed out recently, everything goes through Miller. Every policy goes through Miller, but this is being driven by Trump mainly. Skeets here says, if you look at it, there are many tangents in the admin. Project 2025 is in full effect. Foreign policy is a combo of Russian asset and the stress from Epstein. Of course, we already have them together in picks, so what's left? Hunter Williams says, do you see Trump getting removed over Greenland? If Democrats take over in the midterms, yes. Skeets here also says, there is a story that Trump's first wife's dad was a Nazi collab and gave Trump his copy of Mein Kampf. I've seen that story, obviously not 100% sure if it is accurate, but yes, I've also seen that. V-Man says, Kyle Kulinski is right. If we had a Democratic Party that had a backbone, we would see the Democratic Party win by FDR-type numbers. I agree 100%. And the Democratic Party's kind of lackadaisical approach to this madman who's getting madder by the day is pissing me off more and more by the day. So yeah, Kyle is absolutely right about that. Skeets here says, the worst thing the admin has done to wreck society is release those January 6 criminals. Then they gave $160 billion to ICE. Yeah, and I don't even know. I'm almost at a loss for words with what is happening with this country right now. But it all reminds us that we cannot be completely distracted from other things. The Epstein scandal for Donald Trump, believe it or not, somehow just got so much worse. Coincidentally, got worse with a new poll that came out over the weekend, right around the time that Donald Trump was threatening World War III against Europe because he didn't win his Nobel Peace Prize. Because the one he got, I guess, from Machado is just not good enough. He's got to have his name on it. But it was all another distraction. It's a distraction that he's going to follow through on, don't get me wrong. But a new poll came out showing that 71% of Americans say President Donald Trump knew about his former pal and currently deceased Jeffrey Epstein's sex crimes against underage girls. I don't know why this phrased it as currently deceased. That is very, very weird. As if it's like a temporary thing. Like, well, he's currently deceased. So if you just check back in a couple days, like currently deceased. What a weird way to phrase that. Anyway, according to a YouGov poll taken January 13th through 15th of this year, significantly more Americans think Trump was actually involved in Epstein's crimes than not. The question was, before investigations into Jeffrey Epstein began, how much do you think the following people knew about sex crimes committed by Epstein against underage girl? Among the 71% who said Trump did know, included 53% of Trump voters. 53% of the people who a year and 2 months ago went to the polls and said Trump also said, oh, he knew. Yeah, that guy I voted for was definitely a part of that shit. I don't even know how you square that in your brain. You voted for a guy that you also now believe. Maybe you didn't believe it at the time, I guess, but you voted for a guy that you now say was going to that island or possibly his casino in New Jersey or possibly his office building in New York or possibly Mar-a-Lago and doing horrific things to underage girls. That's the guy you voted for. And now you think that. I hope you don't get to sleep at night ever. I hope the thought of what you did, what you put in office, keeps you up for eternity, honestly. Like, you don't ever deserve to have a peaceful, restful night's sleep ever again because y'all did this. You picked this guy. You didn't have to. And hell, if you didn't like Kamala or any of the other, third, fourth party options, you didn't have to go to the polls at all. But you did, and you picked him. And I don't want anyone to ever forget that the voters, the people who voted for this man, they own it. And I know I've done a ton of stories about all the Trump voters that are like, oh man, I kind of regret my vote, or I kind of do, kind of don't. Blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter if you regret it, if you don't regret it, you did it. Okay. It's like when you see somebody get in a DUI car accident and kill a couple of people too. They're like, oh, I regret it. Sure you do. But you still did the horrible thing, and you have to live with the consequences of that. So whether it's his threats against World War III, whether it's, he was palling around with a pedo, doesn't matter. You own that because you picked that guy. And you may say like, oh, well, we didn't know about the Epstein stuff. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. There was more than enough evidence at the time to show you that these guys partied together frequently. Sure, we didn't have as much as we have right now, but we had enough. So you knew that. You picked this. I'm glad you understand at least now. You think he was involved in this, and it's obvious he was involved in it. He wouldn't be covering this up as deeply as he is if he wasn't deeply involved in it. But also, you own it because you did this to the world. Super chats coming through here. Let me get to these real quick. V-Man says, to all the ICE agents who think they are tough with the military gear and guns, I quote the animated series Star Wars: The Clone Wars, a big gun doesn't make a big man. Very well said. Skeet Sayer says, I always knew we could not trust Cohen. I am sure he is in the files. He ran back to the right after spending solitary time in jail. Yeah, for those of you who have not been paying attention to that little drama unfolding, Michael Cohen came out and said that he felt coerced to turn against Donald Trump by Letitia James, of course, giving Pam Bondi a new reason to go after Letitia James. Midas Touch came out, fired the guy. And that's why we don't make heroes of those people, though, guys. Like we don't do that. Okay? Whether it's Michael Cohen, whether it's Liz Cheney, whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't do it. I mean, that's not shocking that he ran back to where the money is, So really, I think that was a bit of bad judgment on the part of the people who were like lifting him up. And I'm not trying to be mean or mad at Midas Touch at all. Obviously, they've got this great media thing. They're wonderful guys. This was a bad decision. But I don't think it tarnishes them. I see a lot of people that have been like, oh, I'm never going back to Midas Touch. Don't do that. That's also dumb. They're really great. They're really informative. They're amazing at what they do. This just wasn't the best decision. And look, as soon as they realized what Cohen was, they cut him loose immediately. So I'm not going to hold that against him. But what I am going to say to everybody else in general is these people from the right, when they're like, oh no, I think I'm a little over on the left now. You've got real people that have always been on the left. Maybe put those folks up on your shoulders instead of the converts who are going to end up turning coat and going back. That's what should be done. I got a fun one here, though. I got a real fun one. So a couple days ago, I talked about this this campaign email that Donald Trump sent out, and it was really creepy because it was the one where he's like, I'm alone. I'm in the situation room. Everybody else went home. The lights are off, and I've got a dying laptop. And it was just a real creepy vibe. Well, over the weekend, after getting ridiculed tremendously for that insanely creepy campaign email they sent out, they decided to go even creepier. So the Trump campaign sent out a new email that said this: "It's Trump. I'm in the Oval Office, and I can't stop thinking about you." They knew what they were doing. Like, I don't like to give this administration or the campaign credit for anything, but they saw the ridicule they received from that last email of him sitting alone in the dark with a dying laptop. And they're like, you know what? That got us in the headlines. That got people reading it, got people talking about it. Let's go even creepier. I'm alone in the Oval Office, and I'm thinking about you. Yeah. That's about as creepy as it gets. If the next line had been, "And my clothes are in a pile on the floor. I'm sitting here." No, like that is basically what this is trying to get into your heads. Like, that is the image the Trump campaign decided that's what we want voters thinking about right now, is Trump alone and thinking of them in a darkened situation room. I don't know what's going on with this, but I do. What's even funnier about it is it said, it's Trump. I'm in the Oval Office, except he wasn't, because at the time this email came out, he was actually in Mar-a-Lago. So instead of people focusing, good thing, on the creepiness of it, everybody in the media started focusing on, like, does he have dementia? Is his campaign really just that dumb that they don't know that everybody knows he's at Mar-a-Lago, and yet they send out the email and he's like, I'm in the Oval Office? Because all that does is make us think that this man doesn't know where he is. So now it put the talk of dementia back out there, instead of course, people focusing on the truly disturbing nature of whatever the hell it is they were trying to convey by saying, I'm sitting alone in a room. I sent everybody away so I can think about you in private. But either way, just a little something to lighten the mood, I guess, in a relatively dark day of news. So that's a fun thing to do, I guess. Snowflake G30 says, ha ha ha, Farron, you are great. Thank you, I appreciate it. He does need to be removed from office. He's an embarrassment in America. He's just an arrogant clown. Agree. I follow Midas Touch too, and Brian and House of L. Good. Everybody should be watching as many leftist content creators as possible. I do not want to discourage anyone from tuning into anybody on the left. I don't have anybody on the left I don't like. I do see, I'm talking about like the YouTube folks, the old school guys that and women who have been doing this forever. I see a lot of influencers that I'm not huge fans of. They don't have any substance. It's like, oh, I have a camera, so I'm going to say things, or it's like, but you're not knowledgeable enough to actually talk about these issues. And that is, of course, one of the good and bad things about social media, is you do have a lot of people who otherwise would not have had a voice, and they're incredibly smart, incredibly good at what they do. And you also have people who are certainly passionate about it, but not knowledgeable about anything. And it comes across and it just makes the whole thing look bad. And I'm not going to name any names. Honestly, I don't even know the names. But I do see them from time to time. They'll come across in my reels or my stories. And I'm like, yeah, I'd find a new line of work or read more and learn things and then do this. Because if you launch this when you're not prepared, you're going to crash and burn. And that drives me a little crazy. But one more thing to talk about here, because this is very important. Caroline Leavitt has reportedly threatened CBS with a lawsuit. In fact, she said, "We will sue your ass off." But of course, she was totally joking. So here's what happened. Donald Trump recently sat down, did an interview with CBS News for 13 whole minutes. Oh, wow, that's a long time for Donald. So 13 whole minutes, they were able to get him to sit still and do a quick interview. And as Bloomberg reported, when they finished the interview, Donald Trump said, "Make sure you guys don't cut the tape. Make sure the interview is out in full," Miss Leavitt said in an even tone, according to a recording of the exchange obtained by the New York Times. Oh, I'm sorry, Leavitt said that. "Yeah, we're doing it, yeah," the reporter said, and Leavitt then said, "He said if it's not out in full, we'll sue your ass off." And of course, according to the New York Times report, CBS folks were like, "She's joking. That's old Caroline for you. Silly girl." She's not joking. Donald Trump has already sued CBS. And against all odds, he won because CBS caved to him. So he knows he can do it if CBS does anything he doesn't like. So this was not an idle threat. This was not a joke. This is once again, this administration, this time led by Caroline Leavitt, pretending it was coming from Trump himself, but Leavitt threatening the media that if you don't fall in line, if you don't do what we tell you to do, what we want you to do, you will face consequences. So this may, seem like, why are we talking about this? Why are we wasting time on this issue? Because this is a continuation of the dictatorial regime that we have in power with the assault on the freedom of the press. Because they can laugh it off all they want. Caroline Leavitt can say it with a smile. But we know they're not kidding because we have watched him do this in the last several years. We know this is what he does. If you do not toe the line, if you do not do everything I want, if you do not cater to my every whim, you will be punished. This is what Vladimir Putin does. This is what Kim Jong-un does. This is how these dictatorial regimes operate, because they cannot function to their highest capacity of keeping the public at bay if they do not have the media under control. That is one of the tenets of fascism. Control of the media is central to that, because you can't just be alone up there given the message and the talking point, and then the media refutes it. So the public's like, "Oh, well, I guess he's not telling the truth." You've got to have the media in line. And what better way to do that than to jokingly threaten them with something that Donald Trump has literally already done to them? So this isn't a joke. And this isn't irrelevant. This is absolutely something that shows the depth of control that this administration is attempting to have over all of broadcast media. A couple of super chats came through, and I definitely want to get to those as usual here. Let me there's one. Skeets here says, "A good one is when some protesters invaded a church where the pastor was an ICE director. You could see how embarrassed the right was when Christian values were referenced." I had not seen that, so that's good to know. To my fellow Europeans, the MAGA regime have said they are willing to interfere with democratic elections all over Europe. And I don't doubt that they would. I mean, we've done it in other countries. Obviously, Europe's a little more sophisticated, kind of, on par really with how we are and the way we do things. So it's not as easy as going into, maybe a lesser developed country that doesn't have the infrastructure, that may have a more corrupt government. So it's easier to kind of manipulate things there. So they'll try, certainly. I do not think this administration is capable enough to actually be successful with it. So that's a positive for Europe. We are by very, very dumb, demented people. And that, of course, is what is holding them back from some of their more dastardly plans. Listen, sorry, a comment came through. I'm not going to read it, but kind of funny. We're out of time for today. Got a lot of stuff coming up for the rest of the day. Please make sure you tune into that. Had a segment up prior to this. Check it out if you haven't. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Share the content widely. We need to get the word out there. We need more people being engaged and being involved. And by the way, it's not just share my stuff. This is not a selfish show here. Share everybody else's too. All right. We don't have a ton of voices here on the left. So do not abandon, I'm just all tongue-tied today, any of them. Stick with them. Share their content. Subscribe to their channels. Support them as well. We are all in this together. And things are going to be getting so much worse very soon, I think. And we're going to need all of the voices that we can get. So it's not just support me, support all of progressive media. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. And I will talk to you again tomorrow morning.